one of my most recent favoritist shows that I've watched that Kat has exposed me to. The Venture Brothers. So, for the longest time, I had heard of the Venture Brothers, like I'd seen it, like the name. I had no idea what it was or what it was about. And to be honest, it was one of those properties that just sort of existed floating around in the background. I think I talked about this with like Etrian Odyssey, where it's a name I've seen, but I never really knew what it was. I sort of did, but I never really knew. And it wasn't really a real thing to me. Like, I knew there were Venture Brothers Cosmetics in TF2, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know the implications of that. And then the other day, or a while ago, Kat decided to just watch the whole series. And she loved it so much that she wanted to show it to me. And we've been going through it now. And wow, I fucking love this show. This show is awesome. This is apparently, like, I had no idea it had 7 seasons. And was one of these, like, Adult Swim mainstays that had, like, this niche hardcore following for the longest time. I never knew about any of this. This was completely over my head this entire time. I didn't realize the last season was in like 2018. And may never be coming back. I don't know, which is a tragedy because I really love this show. And we haven't finished it yet. It's got 7 seasons. And we finished the first 5. So we have 2 more to go. And I'm like really jonesing to watch more of it. So I should just like actually describe the show. Which is actually, that's like one of the big challenges. And I think one of the reasons it might have had trouble catching on with a wider audience. Because like I've talked before about like shows that have like, there's the hook and then there's the real meat of the show. Venture Brothers has a hook. It's got a lot of meat. It's got a lot of meat on them bones. And it has a hook, but the hook is like unintelligible to most people. Because you're like, oh, it's a Johnny Quest parody. And most people go, what? A what parody? Or if they know what it is, they go, what, Johnny Quest? I think my granddad watched that in the war? And it's not even like that accurate. It's really like a mishmash of a bunch of things that the creators are into. There's like, yeah, Johnny Quest kind of clutch cargo type adventure stories. But there's also tons of like classic superhero comics, pulp horror and science fiction, supernatural and occult stories. There's like an episode that's a big reference to, it's got like a Scooby-Doo parody. Classic literature, history, a lot of fucking nerd shit. It's this big spy and like spy stories, noir stories, like thrillers. There's just so much. It's this big potpourri of styles and influences, but because the creative vision, like the creators agree with each other so much and their vision is so strong, it never feels weird. It never feels like it's discordant in any way. It honestly took me 3 or 4 seasons to even realize, like, confirm fully for myself that the show is supposed to take place contemporaneously. I was still like, is this in like the 70s or something? I couldn't tell. No, it's meant to take place like roughly in like, I guess like the early 2000s when it first aired. Although time does progressively pass over the course of the series, which is one of the cool aspects of it. I would say, in like not really doing the show justice terms, that it is about a family of like science adventurers. there's this dad. The dad is name is Dr. Venture, aka Rusty, and he is a super scientist, which is like a term in this world. They do super science, like making ray guns and shit. And his dad was like the original Dr. Venture, Jonas Venture. And he was like a big science adventurer, part of this like adventuring group in the 60s. And Rusty was a boy adventurer at the time and had like a cartoon based on their adventures that was named after him. So he was like a semi-child celebrity in the sense that he had a cartoon based on him, but he was like a real person. And now he's like a 40-year-old guy who's like bald and kind of washed up. He feels washed up. He feels kind of like a loser. He has two sons, Hank and Dean. Hank is more of a jock. He's a little more like jockey minded and a little like dumber. Dean is more of a nerdy bookworm type. And he loves wearing dresses. He loves finding any excuse he can to wear dresses. It only happens a couple times, but it is like really funny. The frequency with which Dean is like, I need to... The only way I could solve this is by putting on a dress. In the early seasons. And then their bodyguard, Brock Sampson, who is voiced by Patrick Warburton, and it's a Patrick Warburton character. He has an awesome, deep, swaggart voice. And he is like he's a member of the OSI, the Office of Special Intelligence, which is sort of like a secret, they like do, what is it? They fight like supervillains. This is a world of like superheroes and supervillains, but it's like all unionized and like semi-organized, like formal. And so the OSI is like this anti-super villain. They're like S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess, from Marvel is the closest compare. That's probably the reference that it's to. And Brock is like Dr. Venture's appointed bodyguard for the family, and he's almost like an uncle, older brother type of character. And he's like an insane killing machine, but also like basically a babysitter who really cares about the kids and has this like camaraderie, semi-professional, but like they're like fairly close, like years-long friendship with Dr. Venture. They have like this, the characters, one of the strengths of the show is that the characters have these really nice fleshed out relationships with each other that feel really complex. And then in addition to this, there's also like a million billion characters. I guess like the important ones would be like the Monarch, who is Dr. Venture's arch nemesis. He's a butterfly-themed supervillain who, quote-unquote, arches Dr. Venture. That's the word they use when you're their arch nemesis. They say that you're arching them, which always sounds like a sex thing to me and is still funny in my head. I think a lot of people would love to arch Dr. Venture. And his super hot girlfriend, Dr. Girlfriend, who's like one of the best characters in the show. She's like a sexy lady with this super deep voice, which is like a great character touch. They could have easily had her have some kind of sultry tone, but she has this like really deep. She's voiced by like a man, and he does this like really like Boston accent, like gargling fucking smoker's voice for her all the time, which is awesome. She's not supposed to be trans, but Kat loves her for obvious reasons. I love her too. She's like absurdly hot. And she's like the Monarch's assistant. She's like his sidekick essentially, but she's also like significantly more level-headed and competent than him, and she knows a lot more of like she's more like well-studied. I guess she is Dr. Girlfriend. They have this whole, okay, so when I say that they're like this whole thing, this whole heroes and villains thing is formalized. They belong to like the Guild of Calamitous Intent, which is basically a supervillain union that gives them like benefits and pay for for like coming up with like world domination plots and stuff like that, and having arch rivals. And they have this whole handbook of policies and rules and stuff. And like Dr. Girlfriend is she knows it, like basically she has like an encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff. It's just this kind of recurring bit that she knows about all of the little rulings and stuff that the monarch is like, what the fuck? What's great about the show is that one of the things that's great about it is that there's like 1 million characters, but they have like 5 voice actors total. And two of them are like Dr. Venture and like 1 or 2 other characters specifically. One of them just plays Dean, I think, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. Everyone does multiple voices. One of the voice actors is Patrick Warburton, who I think just does Brock. They have a guy. No, they have one of the creators, Doc Hammer, like his ex-wife plays like all the other women in the show. And then the 2 creators, what is it? Something Public and Doc Hammer play everyone else. It's one of those like Smiling Friends kind of things where you can hear their voice in other characters, but it's fun. It kind of rewards you for paying attention and picking up on the little ways that they voice different characters, which is genuinely like great to... It's really interesting, I think, especially if you're into voice acting. There's a great video I watched that was a big compilation of them doing different character voices at conventions. And they sort of walk through the process for how they come up with a voice and differentiate it from the other one. There was a great comment I read that was like, there's like 4 nerd, like real nerd voice characters in the show, I think, that they do, where it's just like, there's a Henchman 21, who's one of the Monarch's top, like, got one of the recurring Monarch henchman guys. Henchman 24, who's like they're like a comedy duo, basically. There's another character who comes in later named Saint Cloud, who's like this rich guy. And he always talks like this. And oh god, there's like one other character I can't. Oh, Billy Quizboy. I fucking love Billy Quizboy. And they all, I think he voices all of them, or like 3 of the 4, whatever. And they're all like clearly nerd voices, but completely different kinds of nerd voices that will remind you of different people that you've known. They're different kinds of guys. There's this like absolutely phenomenal skill in coming up with like funny voices and little ways to characterize people in the way that they speak. I love Dr. Orpheus, he's this necromancer who lives on like the Venture compound property, and he always talks like this. Whoa. And he's accompanied by like dramatic musical stings. He's just awesome. Like it's just so fun to hear him deliver dialogue. I haven't even talked about like what the show is even really like, what the episodes are about. And that's because it's another aspect that I think kind of does the show. It might have worked against the show in the long run, which is that it reminds me a lot of The Office. So The Office, when it first ran on television, definitely had a fan base and a following. It got like 8 seasons or something. But it was never like the biggest hit, especially culturally, until it went to streaming. And with streaming, that was when it really hit its stride, and it blew up and that's where all the memes come from. It's when it went on Netflix and people could just watch the whole show front to back in one go. Or, like binge through it. And that's because, to my understanding, The Office, like, it has a general setup and a general stable of characters, but it kind of like gradually adds on stuff as you go on, and it builds up these little characters, and it is so much more satisfying when you're watching, say, season 5, if you've seen every single episode up to that point, because the characters have so many little things established about them and all these little interactions and history that they have, that a lot of the humor basically takes advantage of this big established canon of who these people are. And Venture Brothers is like that times like 1,000. Like, Venture Brothers has lore. You can get spoiled on Venture Brothers lore. So every episode I would say, but here's the problem, I think, when it's running on TV, is that it has an episodic structure. It very rarely does, this episode is a direct follow-up to the previous one. It's very rare. It's usually every episode is like a clean start. But the characters grow and develop and change, and new characters come in and new things are established over the course of the series. And that drives a lot of like the little jokes and the interior like motivations, and why is this character acting like this? It's because of this season, and in this episode they found out this, and now they're acting differently because of that. This character isn't in this episode because they're over there here having like a character arc, doing something else for this season. And genuinely, well, so I think there's a lot of episodes you could put on for someone who's never seen the show before, and with little to no context, they could enjoy it and basically pick up on everything. But there are so many where it's like, I don't know how interesting or how funny this is if you don't know these characters already, because knowing who they are just adds on to all of this existing stuff. And if you're just watching it on a TV schedule, unless you're religiously watching it week to week and you remember this stuff and you're keeping up with it, it's really easy to lose track or just like not understand what's going on or why anything is happening. Because the show does like massive status quo changes at least like every season, especially after the third one. Characters are just in totally different places in their lives. They're doing different things, and these will be season-long arcs that will just get added every time there's an episode with them. A little bit of progression, a little bit of this. Sometimes, not even all the time, but just like this moves forward a little bit, this develops out a little bit. We spend time here. You figure out you find out how they feel about this thing, and these little things add up. And yeah, it is not a show that like demands that you watch everything as it's coming out, just because like the structure is still episodic. Like structurally it's episodic, but internally it's kind of serialized. It has a ton of consistency and a lot of lore. It's got a lot of lore. And I think that's what makes it so much better on streaming, because when you or just any format where you can just watch it from the beginning, because you get to experience the whole thing. You just get to experience the whole thing, and everything builds up and pays off in the way that the creators really intended for it to. And it's really satisfying. I like the way that the show progresses its characters and puts them in new, different phases of their lives. Hank and Dean grow up a little bit. I want to say that after like the third season, they kind of start aging by like, there's at least like a year has gone by, and they go through like phases, you know. Dean is emo this season. Hank grows his hair out in this season. And these are like little phases that reflect them growing up and wanting to become their own people and distinguish themselves from their dad and what they value and all this like cool stuff. It's really satisfying to pay off. It is also just like one of the funniest fucking things ever. This show is so funny. I am routinely laughing my ass off while watching it. There's like it's every character is some kind of just freakazoid. There's so few normal people in the Venture Brothers. Everyone has some like really strange character quirk or complex, or they're this really extreme embodiment of an archetype. And I think that's what the general theming of like a lot of pulp fiction and genre stories enhances that quality about the characters, because a lot of them draw on existing archetypes of like a scientist character or a superhero character or a pirate or any number of different types of supervillain archetypes, but they just push it in some strange direction. There's this whole like the whole character of like Sergeant Hatred. I did not think he was when he was first introduced, I did not think he was going to be so important later on and become a main character. He's like a super main character. I love Sergeant Hatred. He's also like a reformed pedophile. he's like this US military themed supervillain who like previously, I don't know if he ever like actually molested anyone. It's like a little up in the air. But he like weaned himself off of his pedophilic urges by marrying this Native American princess named Princess Tiny Feet, who like he is obsessed with enough to like get him, get his eyes off the kids, basically. And his there's like this whole arc where like she leaves him and he gets like washed up, and then Brock stops being their bodyguard for plot reasons, and then Sergeant Hatred is oh yeah, and the Monarch has to stop being Dr. Venture's arch nemesis because of things that happen. And then like for this like brief stint of the show, Sergeant Hatred is arching Dr. Venture. You know what I'd pay to see that. And then he like becomes their bodyguard, and he like becomes a good guy, but he still like has like pedophilic urges. So he's like, there's a whole episode where they gotta go. It's like the Monarch has cornered Dr. Venture. The whole setup for this episode is the Monarch has cornered Dr. Venture, and he's about to like fry him or something. And then Dr. Venture's like alarm on his watch beeps, and he's like, I actually have a therapist appointment. And the Monarch like is like, what the fuck? And then Dr. Girlfriend reminds him that he has to let him, the guild ruling is that he has to let his arch nemesis go for mental health support reasons if they have like a medical appointment. And then he's like, no, but he needs a doctor's note. And then like Dr. Venture pulls one out, and he's like, fuck, okay. And then he calls all of his henchmen off. And like the A plot, B plot is Dr. Venture goes to like a therapy group for former boy adventurers, and it's a bunch of like adults who are former, boy adventurers. There's like a Hardy Boys parody. There's like an Astro Boy parody. There's a guy, it's supposed to be Johnny Quest, and they used to call him Johnny Quest in the show, but they also made him like a drug addict tweaker, and they had to, so I think like Turner, someone from cartoon, like Adult Swim, someone was like, hey, could you like just not call him Johnny Quest? So they start calling him Action Johnny. They're all in this like therapy group with each other, trying to get over the shit. It's like a support group basically. And then because Dr. Venture is out of the house, Sergeant Hatred takes Dean and Hank to a movie theater. Takes them to a movie that's like it's like a Lord of the Rings parody. And then who shows up but the Monarch's henchmen, because they had like this thing planned, and then they got let out of work early because of this doctor's appointment thing. So they're like, well, let's go to the movies. And they're all like still in costume with these like big butterfly wings. They get into like an argument with Dean and Hank. And they're watching the movie, and there's like this whole thing about how like the main character is this little elf boy who's actually like 500 years old, and but he never ages physically. He always looks like a little boy, but he's totally an adult. And Sergeant Adrian, like when he just learns this information about the movie, he starts like getting really antsy, and he starts looking around and realizing that everyone else in the theater is like a little kid, and he starts like having a panic attack, and he runs to the bathroom, and he pulls out like a syringe of drugs or something, and it's called No Molestol, but it's empty, so he's gotta like run home and lock himself in a room to prevent himself from having like a pedophile attack. And it's so fucking funny. It is so goddamn funny. And the show is just packed full of these weird characters who are often like immoral and strange, but it's so ridiculous that it very carefully kind of threads this needle where it never gets too fucked up. There's like this one Scooby-Doo, the actual Scooby-Doo parody episode I thought was like maybe a little too dark. Got like close to being like a little too dark for me. But I think that was also written by someone else. Fuck. Cat told it was someone like really notable. I can't remember. But it was written by like someone else. And I was like, okay, I kind of get that. It's all just like the characters are really well established. The relationships are really well developed. They have all these funny quirks and traits, and the further you get in, the more rewarding it is that there's so many characters, and they have this interconnected web of relationships. And all this like historical stuff of the backstory of these different organizations, and it gets like a little convoluted, and even like thinking back now, there's like plot points where I can't quite remember how one character got to a certain way, but like I don't really mind that much because I remember at the time it basically made enough sense. And it's just packed with so many good jokes. It's just the writing is so consistently good. I was very impressed with the first 3 seasons with just how dense the scripts were. Basically, every episode has like an A, B, and C plot. There's like so much going on, and it all eventually wraps itself up in a nice little bow. Although usually one of the plots will be resolved in a post-credits scene, so you got to wait through the credits. But it's always funny. It's always a great punchline. And then at the end of season 3, there's like a big dramatic finale, and every season ends on a cliffhanger that then the next season kind of picks up on. And usually like the first episode of each season is wrapping up whatever crazy thing happened at the end of the previous one. And then the show kind of gets back to being mostly episodic in terms of episode premises. And then but like the start of season 4 is real. I think it's because they thought it was going to be their last season. At least that's what Kat told me. So blame her if I'm wrong. They thought it was going to be the last season. So it's a lot more lore heavy at the start. And they spent like, it felt like 3 episodes kind of like in this weird transitional period before the new status quo was established. And I wasn't quite feeling it for the first couple episodes. And then like by the 4th episode, oh wait, yeah, it's the one where he goes to therapy. And that was the first, in my opinion, really good episode of the season. And then the rest of it was great. It's also when, after that point, the episodes get less dense, where they tend to just have an A plot and B plot. But they're still funny, and they kind of focus in a little more on an individual character's story. So there's more focus applied to the individual plot lines, as opposed to the earlier seasons where it felt like, because they were juggling so many plots within like a 22-minute episode, It felt like you were maybe getting like 30-second to a minute long snippets of each one. And I never felt like it was paced too fast. It's just like, wow, this is fast. It's not too fast, but it is at a very fast clip. It decompresses a little bit in the later seasons, and I think it works just as well. And it's also fine because I am now so invested in these characters that I don't mind just spending more time with, like, the episode where fucking Rusty's, like, writing a musical about himself. Like, that shit is funny. Yeah, I just really dig on this show. I would highly recommend it. I think it's they've got a YouTube channel where they're just uploading like all the episodes now in a nice high quality. So that's great. I think also like the first 3 seasons are on Netflix, but only those for some reason. I would highly recommend watching it. It's a great show to just watch from the beginning. It's also like good immediately. We never watched the pilot. Kat said the pilot was bad. I've never bothered to watch the pilot. But like, at least just from what I could say, episode 1, it's like immediately funny. I was charmed by it. I was smiling. It got some good laughs out of me. I think the first really great line of the show comes in, I want to say episode 3, which has a plot line about Brock going camping, and he's like Bigfoot hunting, and it turns out that Bigfoot is like is in a relationship with the Bionic Man, the $6 Million Man, and he's Brock ends up helping the two of them like escape. They're like on the run, and they make this disguise. They shave Bigfoot and make a wig out of Bigfoot's fur and put it on the $6 Million Man. And Brock like drives through the checkpoint, and as they're driving off, they've escaped, and Brock says, "You could have told me Bigfoot was a dude before I shaved him." And the guy says, "Oh, come on, Brock. Bigfoot doesn't have anything you haven't seen before." And Brock goes, "Bigfoot is something I haven't seen before." That's like episode 3, and I was like, this is very promising. And I think it only really gets better. I think it only gets better as it just adds on more and more layers. So suffice to say, big thumbs up on the Venture Brothers. I love this show. I literally can't wait. I think tomorrow I'm gonna go see Kat and we're gonna watch more of it.